Oh, look at it like this. When you were married to this person who you eventually called quits because they were abusing you, when you're in it, you thought it was love. When you're out of it, you realize maybe it wasn't the type of love that I thought it was, right? So, Shiva, for you, when you're working with the people that you work with, in hindsight, do they reevaluate their relationships and say, okay, this is what it was. It's a lot different than I thought it was when I was actually in it.
Yeah. I will give an example. So, when coaching someone, it's all about perspective, right? That it always goes back to perspective. And that's one of the beautiful things about art and movies and podcasts and music is we gain a new perspective. And sometimes and often, again, because the way brain works, we are very focused on our own lives and our own stories, and we're always trying to figure them out. So we can watch a movie or listen to a song or listen to a podcast and say, oh my goodness, I have a fresh perspective on this experience that I'm having. And so I remember coaching someone who was saying that, and this was such a pivotal moment in the conversation because I was aware of abuse in a relationship that they were experiencing, but they weren't aware. And it was not my place as a coach to say, you're being abused. It was my role to help them gain perspective on their situation in their own time and take ownership and feel empowered about how they wanted to respond to that. And it was something as simple. There were many, many clues and what we say often red flags, right? And we hear about that a lot right now. There were many red flags and clues to the outsider, but it's like that frog in boiling water, right? Like, why do we not respond for a long time? Well, because the water's it's just a little hotter and then it's a little hotter. But then often at the end stage of abusive relationships, we start to question because it's starting to hurt. It's starting to get worse enough that, ooh, it's starting to scald the skin. And then we say, ooh, what about that? And then all of a sudden, what often happens is something that was tenable becomes untenable because then the temperature really goes up. Because when you say, I actually don't like that you're doing that to me, an abusive person is going to try to increase the coercive control and make sure that you know where you belong, which is in that relationship under their control. Whereas a person that you have a good relationship with and a reciprocal relationship will say, oh my goodness, okay, well, they may have some issues with, deniability or accountability, as we often do. I didn't mean to do that to you, right? But a person in a healthy relationship may say that at first, and you say, well, I understand that, but this is how I experience it. And they'll say, oh, well, I don't want to hurt you. So even though I didn't mean to hurt you, you experienced it that way. Let's figure out a way to get through this so that I stop hurting you. Because the last thing I want to do is hurt you, right? That's a healthy relationship. But when you're in a relationship that coercive control and abuse is present, that's not what happens, right? So they turn up the temperature. Now the water is boiling. And what do you do? So for this particular person, one of the ways that I was able to help them have a different perspective. I like to do a bird's eye view of examples, right? So they were explaining to me how they would park and how their partner allowed them to park their car closest to the house. That was kind of that was a sign of them respecting them. You know, it takes me less time to bring in groceries and things. That was their perspective, and that's what they had been basically told what was happening. But as they were explaining their days, what was happening from an outsider's viewpoint was everyone else parked their cars at the edge of the driveway and could leave, could come and go freely. And this person was trapped. They could never leave because there was always someone in their way. But it had been framed for them, oh, look, you're so lucky you get to park closest to the house. But they were literally trapped. They couldn't leave. And so we did a bird's eye view and broke down what that meant, from their perspective. And there was this aha moment of, oh my good, I'm actually trapped. I can't leave my home. They leave regularly and I leave once or twice a week because I literally can't leave. And then they started thinking about all of the other ways, once you have that aha moment, then they're thinking about other ways in their life that they can't get out. Conversations, disagreements, financial situations, choices they make for parenting their children, choices they make for their education and their vocation. All of those things were similarly framed that, oh, we're making this decision for you. But once they took a different look at it, they realized, no, the decision was made for me and I was made to feel I didn't have another choice, but it was dressed up in pretty wrapping to make it seem like I had agency. And at that point, then the question is, what do you want to do now that you recognize that? Because you do have agency, right? That's a facade that they've created for you, but it's not. It's not true. Now, there are hurdles to jump through to get between where you are and agency that is actionable on a daily basis. And that's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. What do you want to do now? Or what do you want to do making a step forward? Or do you, right? Because people need to make these choices in their own time. They need to feel confident and ready to change their circumstances. But even just getting that acknowledgement and that perspective shift, until you have that, you cannot change. And so that's why it's so important to me through having an online community. We don't tell our stories where we do things like share videos, discussions, the podcast, interviews. We share songs and movies, all that help add different perspectives so that when victims, often women, when we look statistically, of course, of control and abuse, hear that perspective, it might just be that little switch in perspective. It may help them see more clearly what's occurring in their own lives, which then is the domino tipping over to lead to that effect where they can really lean into their own lives, into freedom and into regaining agency over their lives. And so I'm so passionate about that through my community as well as through books that I'm writing and talks with Dr. Shafer, just to try to really help people gain that perspective of agency and of the value of their own life and their own health. Because we can't live a happy, healthy life if we are feeling trapped and that we don't have our freedom.
Do you think then the age of the person has an impact on when they realize or achieve that type of perspective and possible agency?
I do. I think what used to be deemed as a midlife crisis because it was like snappy and cool and fun, and we thought of the guy in the sports car, right? That's what we envisioned when we thought about a midlife crisis. I think many of us do go through that because again, our frontal lobes, once we're in our late 20s, early 30s, they're coming online, right? Many of us have young children and we are in survival mode, right? And we're just like one foot in front of the other, get the kids dressed, diapered, and then get the kids to school. And then by the time they're a little older, then we're starting to actually come up for air and we're starting to notice what's going on. And the sad thing about that, about living in that survival mode, again, a lot of it stems from what we experienced in early life, right? We're replicating systems that we were a part of or that we witnessed. And so it didn't feel that unusual. But again, about the perspective shifting and the beauty of things like podcasts and movies and music is to share that life doesn't have to be this way. We can have partnerships that are healthy and are truly helping one another rear children if that's something that you are doing or that you're interested in doing, help you have a successful career, help you make sure that you're living a healthy lifestyle. Our relationships can be something that builds us up, not breaks us down or imprisons us. And for so many people, it takes until that middle of life to look around and realize that the choices we've made, leaning into what we think other people want or expect of us and pleasing other people, hasn't really propelled us forward on our life's journey's path, but it has imprisoned us in cages that we unintentionally added bricks to or reinforced over the years. And now in that midlife time, we can say, okay, how do I want to use my energy now? Because this isn't working anymore. And I need to do something different and start living my life because the clock is ticking and time is the most precious resource we have.